Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we'll be discussing how to automate your HR onboarding process. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Strega of AgilePoint, and today I'm joined by two special guests. So why don't we let our first speaker introduce himself. Christian, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. Hi, everyone. I'm Christian. I'm representing Convex Network, which is the Romanian partner of AgilePoint. We were developing onboarding processes and some other HR processes here in Romania for some of our customers. And this is where my input will come from for this webinar.
Great, thank you, Christian. And how about you, Elizabeth?
Thank you, Lucas. Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Belisle. I'm a management consultant and I specialize in digital strategy, transformation, digital process automation. I've been doing this for around 20 years. It goes back to the days before it was called digital transformation, when back then we used to talk about going paperless. Funnily enough, there's still a lot of paper, unfortunately, but the good news is there are tools now that are a lot better than they used to be 20 years ago.
Excellent. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Christian. All right, so let's head on to the next slide here. Okay, so before we get into the meat of today's conversation, there's really two elements that I'd like to quickly cover off. The first is just a brief housekeeping here. As you've noticed, this is a webinar session, and as such, your lines have been muted. Now, that being said, we do want to encourage interaction, and the best way to do that is using the questions panel in your Zoom console. If we don't get a chance to answer your question throughout the course of the webinar today, we have a few moments set aside at the end to go over those questions as a group. Now, as we mentioned, we have a great agenda for you today. We'll talk about how to automate your HR onboarding process to provide a wonderful employee experience. And as such, our webinar will cover a few things. Some of the common challenges that we're seeing associated with manual onboarding processes. We'll touch on the benefits that you'll realize when you automate these processes and give you a live demo. After the demo, we'll talk about how to get started and how to get to this automation promised land. Lastly, we'll close with a few key takeaways as well as a live Q&A of all of your questions. So that brings us to our first poll for today, which is what best describes your role in the organization? So we'll leave the poll up here for a few moments. Feel free to chime in. All right, so far it looks like we have a pretty even split between IT management and directors as well as developers. So overall, it seems like a fairly technical group for today. That's great to see. Okay, Christian, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Lucas. So we'll just continue with the common challenges of onboarding processes and especially of manual processes. And first of all, I will make a short introduction about what is the onboarding processes and why it's so important. And I will start with a recent survey made by Korn Ferry, and they are saying that today's top talent are looking for more than just a job, and they are not afraid to job hop until they find the right fit, the right job for them. And in that survey, 90% of the executives who answered, they said that retaining new hires was an issue in their company with some turnover rates that might go up to 25% within the first 6 months alone. So this is why the onboarding process is so important. And now regarding the process, imagine a little bit the manual onboarding process, how it looks. So HR and direct manager, they might know that the new hire will start at December 15. Let's say they are talking today. And then they do what? They inform their colleagues and ask them to start the preparation for the new hire with all that he requires, they will try to follow up within 2 or 3 days before December 15th. What happens usually is that they end up in asking on December 15 for different tasks, some of them to be fulfilled, some of them to be finalized, but anyway, they will check also on December 15. And usually these are for the small tasks, like notebook installation and preparation, user creation, phone setup, things like this. But the onboarding process is not only about this. The induction part is more important and is more complex, and also requires a very good planning, and also requires a close follow-up with a new hire from the mentor, from the trainers, from the direct manager, from HR. And this follow-up usually involves, or should involve, should check about the level of information understanding, the level of adoption of the culture, adoption of the processes, and the overall engagement of the new hire in the onboarding process. And starting from this picture, imagine that any inconsistencies in the process will affect the new hire integration. And this is why this is a big challenge of especially of the manual onboarding processes, that some inconsistencies, some errors, or some delays within this process will affect the new hire integration. And of course, such inconsistencies might come from different facts. From the fact that manual onboarding process is not trackable. It is very hard to share information with other people involved in the onboarding process, like HR members, mentors, or direct managers, trainers, as I said, about the information that actually the information is stored in different people inboxes. It is not centralized. Also, the manual process means that it takes a lot of time, and also there are mistakes made by some people. Maybe they are not doing it every day, and sometimes they are doing better than in some process instances they are doing better than in others. They forgot some things. It's hard to be consistent without a system. And also using paper or using emails, the possibility of losing information is higher. Also, there are some other challenges, like it is very hard to track things out, and this results in a lack of accountability for different people that are involved within the onboarding process. It is very hard to draw some conclusions that, okay, we are doing good or not. It is very hard to define some KPIs or SLAs and measure them, because when the process is manual. And of course, all of these might result in what I said at the beginning, that there is a high risk of the new hire to have a poor impression on the organization and the culture, and there is a risk of a higher percentage of turnover, especially in the first months, because the longer it takes for an employee to understand the culture and the processes of the organization, the longer it takes for the company to see the return on investment in that employee. And this goes to the conclusion that companies should provide systems that are modern, that are attractive for the new hires, to ensure that they will integrate fast, integrate consistent within the organization, and they will remain happy with the job. They will start happy and they will remain with the job as long as needed. Short conclusion will be that the new employees should leave even their first day at the office feeling excited about the new journey and engaged in the process. So, okay, they come to the job at the first day, they should have all the resources they need, as I said, laptop, users, role, access to different information, a clear package of what the onboarding process, the induction process as part of the onboarding process is, and they will continue to run the onboarding process later on, excited and happy. And so I'm going to the benefits of an onboarding app. And within an onboarding process, I was tackling a little bit before, there are two main areas. One is about the resources, the basic resources that a new hire needs, like laptop, phone, users, access rights, and so on, the cubicle, the car, if the job requires a car, all the other steps like provisioning in the payroll systems and so on. And for this part, inside an onboarding system, onboarding application, should be a trigger to start all these tasks as soon as the start date of the new hire is known and it is entering the system. And starting from this, all the tasks that are associated with the onboarding process should have deadlines, of course, should have responsible persons. And this will ensure that when the new hire is coming in the first day, he will have everything on the table, let's say, ready for him. Then there is the second part, which is the induction. Here again, this can be split in two. There can be an initial part of the induction with some formal and maybe less than formal training about the integration process. This will help the employee to have the clarity and confidence about the company structure, the roles inside the company, and of course, his role within the organization. So he should understand the organization from the very beginning, having the information ready for him, waiting for him in the first day, and his future role. And this is how they will be, the new hires will be integrated well and quick. Then there is a second part of the induction process, which will connect the new hire to a longer term planning, which will allow the new hire to envision his future options within the organization. So, okay, this is what I should do now, and this is what I might do in the future. Sorry. Okay, I was a little bit behind with the topics on the screen. Of course, running all these, the process is fine, but running all these tasks should be assisted by different tools like automatic notifications. Okay, I am responsible with security, and before the new hire will come, I should provide him a badge and access to the building, but I should be notified that, okay, I should do something before December 15. If something happened, if I'm not doing it, okay, I should receive a reminder if something happens. Then maybe I'm not at the office or something like this and I didn't finish my job, then some escalations should be in place and someone else should do it if I cannot do it from different reasons. Again, I discussed about the mentors, trainers. They should be involved with this process, but they, of course, first of all, they should be notified, but then they should enter the system and plan for the next moves, the next trainings or one-to-ones with the new hire. So again, when the new hire is coming, then the plan should be ready and the new hire should access the plan in order to know what will be his next steps as part of the onboarding process. In this way, with such a system, HR team will not have to chase everyone and just check emails and so on if everybody is doing his job. They can focus on value-added tasks, meaning okay, some trainings that are important for the new hire, but also they can focus on the process, on the quality of the process. I was talking about KPIs and SLAs before. Now with the system, they can implement and define some KPIs and then measure them and compare with the real data, because all the data will be in the system. So in this way, they can draw some conclusions and improve the processes where it is needed. Maybe I don't know, with some of the tasks or some resources that are not available and so on. This was about the challenges and the benefits of onboarding up. Then we will go to Lucas for the demo.
Great, thank you, Christian. If you could remove what you've shared there, I can take over.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so a lot of what Christian just mentioned is really reflected here in this onboarding application. Right, to give some context on the app here, this was actually built for one of our customers. It's been slightly condensed for the purposes of this webinar. But before we run through the end user's experience, let's quickly talk through what's happening here in this process. So the workflow will initiate here with an HR step, right? Once we've decided to hire a new employee, we're going to capture some of their details and then route it through the various actors responsible for a smooth onboarding. Now, one of the things that Christian mentioned really resonates here, and that is to initiate this process immediately once the hiring date is known. And so while this process here initiates on a manual basis, right, a future state might be an automated trigger based on an event in an HR system, for instance. Now, once we've captured the new employee's details, we're going to make them feel welcome, right? Send them a welcome packet here where they can select an onboarding gift of their choice, chocolates, a breakfast voucher, or a bouquet of flowers, for instance. And then our next task here will be with the HR contact center. Right now, this is where we set all of the eligibilities and benefits that a new employee might enjoy on their first day. Now, to keep this demo concise, we're going to skip the enterprise components here, where we would configure salary details, any security or welfare benefits, and we'll keep it solely to the departmental level, right? Going through the various components that a user might need to go about their day-to-day. So this is going to involve things like IT, getting their equipment and software provisioned, telephony, and any facilities details. Now, after we've captured all of that data, we're going to go back to the HR contact center. Really here, what we're doing is just validating all of the selections that have been made. And upon approval, we'll notify everyone in the process that the onboarding is completed. So now that we have an understanding of the process as a whole, let's go through the demo itself. Okay, so first let's capture some details about our new employee. We'll give our new employee a title. And then we'll classify their position type. In this case, I'll be coming on full-time. I'm going to be working in the sales department, and my cost center will be pre-sales. Now you're seeing down here at the bottom, I have a radio button and a drop-down list to indicate the seniority level of this employee. All right, this might be another future state consideration here, where we have a higher level of service for an executive as opposed to a salesperson. Right, just something to consider. Now that we've captured all of the details here, I'm going to submit this for processing. And for the sake of simplicity in this demo here, I'm going to play all of the roles for the various actors in our process. So in just a second here, I'll receive an email that we have a new onboarding to take on. There we go. Now, AgilePoint supports the concept of multi-channel notifications, right? Email being just one of them, right? So we can always notify the various actors in your workflow per their preferred channel. But just for example's sake here, we have a nicely branded email notification with dynamic data being displayed in the notification here, and a link to open up my task. Now in this case here, all of the data that was previously entered has been marked as read-only. And as we mentioned, to keep this demo concise, we're going to skip the eligibilities at the enterprise level and skip straight into departmental level requirements. Now let's follow along with the workflow as it's executing here. So what I'll do is I'm just going to bring up a process viewer. For those of you who are talking with AgilePoint for the first time, this helps us understand in real time where our process is in its execution. So as you're seeing here, we're currently at the departmental requirements step. So I'll just go back to my work center and open up this task. Okay, so in this case here, I work out of San Francisco, so I'll go ahead and select that, as well as my machine requirements. So I'm just going to fill some basic details here about what's required for me. How I want my username configured to be based off of my employee ID. And then the software that I'd like pre-installed on my machine when I first turn it on. Okay, so now that we've specified the requirements at the departmental level, you'll see that our workflow spins off into 3 distinct tasks. The first will be facilities, telephony, and then the IT side. So you've probably heard my inbox go off a few times now. So I'll go back to my work center and we can open up all 3 tasks at once. Now it won't kick in here in this demo, but as you may have seen when we walked through the process model, all of these tasks have SLAs applied, right? Which gives us an ability to ensure that our internal policies are adhered to, and a number of ways to do so on an automated basis, right? If our task is becoming close to being missed, perhaps we send an escalation email or a reminder. If it becomes overdue, maybe we run a sub-process as a corrective measure. Right, but in this case here, I've created the user's account, I've installed the image on their PC, installed all of their software, so they're now ready to be productive on their first day in the office. Okay, so now we're on the telephony step. I've now given the employee an extension, and let's just note that down here. And the extension has been connected. So in this case here, not much to check on, not much to complete. So let's just submit and move our process forward. Okay, so from a facilities perspective, we want to make sure that our employee and any of their new colleagues can easily find their room. So we'll set up a sign and give them a key so they can open their office on their first day. Okay, so that completes the departmental requirements. As you're seeing here, we still have an employee welcome letter that we need to take action on. So I'm just going to open that up from here. First, I'll just assign this to myself and then open it up. Now, as Christian mentioned, we want our employees to feel welcomed on their first day in the office, right? And what better way to do that than to give them an option for an onboarding gift? So as you're seeing here, we have an option between sweets and chocolates, a breakfast voucher, or a flower vase. So let's go ahead and select breakfast for two. Okay, so once AgilePoint catches up here, we'll see the last remaining step light up, which is for the HR contact center to validate all of the selections that have been made. So again, I can just open this up here from my process viewer. Now, as the last remaining step in the process here, I want to walk through all of the selections that have been made. And as you're seeing here, a great sort of checklist functionality on the left-hand side there in my navigation menu. Once I've visited a tab, that tab becomes a slightly lighter color, indicating that I have viewed that section. All right, so everything's looking pretty good here. So I'll just click submit, and that should end our process. All right, Elizabeth, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucas. That was really good. Let me just share my screen and I will be back. Okay, can you see my screen? We're good?
Looking great.
Okay, so it's important to understand that the process that Lucas has just shown us is not the AgilePoint HR onboarding process. It's one of the process. AgilePoint is a tool that allows you to digitize your own process, whatever its shape and size. You don't have to adapt the way you work to fit AgilePoint. It's the other way around. AgilePoint adapts to you. And so to answer the question, how to get started, we need to get started with stakeholder needs analysis and process mapping so that we understand what we're doing. Why do that? Why do a stakeholder needs analysis? It's because HR onboarding is one of those business processes, like we've said so far, that involves a lot of different people across the business, whether it's HR, security, training, and so on. There are many people that need to be involved, many people with different needs, and involving and understanding the needs of those people whose job will be impacted by a new system, it is just best practice in change management. But it's also the only way to make sure that your digitized process, your app, will address the current issues and achieves the goals of the project. Now, generally transforming and digitizing is about improvement. It's about doing things better, doing the right thing, so that the process is more efficient and less costly. And that can only happen when you involve the people who do the doing, the people who do the job. And you might think involving people is all very nice, but most organizations are not a democracy. So you also need to identify your decision maker. That's the person that will have the final word when your stakeholders disagree or can't make their mind up. That's often the person with the money purse, the person with the budget. So identify your stakeholders, identify your decision maker, very first step. Once you've done that, there are two key ingredients to a good stakeholder needs analysis. And the first one is the involvement method, how you will go about involving these people. Will you do one-to-one interviews, user groups, surveys? If you have hundreds, thousands of employees, maybe surveys is the way forward. We have clients who have permanent user groups who meet on a regular basis. They've had AgilePoint for a few years. They've started with one process. They've added more. They constantly add and improve their existing processes. So they have a group of people that they can tap on a regular basis. The second key ingredient is questionnaires. Once you've identified these stakeholders, what will you ask them? The questions are key. You want to be asking them about their goals, what they want to get out of the digital process, what the risks of the current process are, risks of the future one that they can see. How can technology help? Even if they're not very technical in the first place. Everybody has a smartphone now. Everybody shops online, banks online. People know what good looks like. And so asking them what works well is a good way forward. What works well now? What doesn't work so well? And how can it be improved? You'd be amazed at how many organizations actually skip this step. It seems obvious, but I see it time and time again. The tendency is just to go straight into the solution and involve as few people as possible. Get 2-3 people in, ask them what they want on the electronic form or on their process, and off they go. And over the years, I've come to the conclusion that people do that because they generally think it's just quicker, simpler, less politics, don't involve too many people. It's just going to be quicker. And in a way, they're right. It is quicker to do that. You save time up front, but you lose it later on. Because if you don't involve the stakeholders, eventually these people will find out that there's a new HR onboarding system coming on, or any new system. They'll find out. And if they haven't been involved from the beginning, they will resist. And they'll resist for different reasons, but very often it's because the new system simply doesn't address their problems. And so whatever time you save at the beginning, you lose later on. And it doesn't really take that long to do this. It's not only important, it's not that long. And if you don't have business analysts in-house who can help you, our partners do, and our professional service system does. So ask for help. The second step, process mapping. So one question that I often get in process mapping is, do we have to map the current process? Do we have to do both? Can we just do the new one? And those of you who've done process improvement before will know that the theory says you start by mapping your current process, you identify areas of improvement, and then you map the future process. But in the case of onboarding, like Christian was saying earlier on, there's a lot of inconsistencies in the manual process generally. And people do things differently. Same people don't necessarily do the same thing twice. So it doesn't always make sense to map the existing process. You can jump straight into the exciting piece and jump into the digital process. The other common question is, to what level of details should we get into? And the answer to that is the bare minimum. This is not about producing a work of art in Visio that has all the different steps and lots of details. There are 4 things that you need to know to start building your AgilePoint app. The first one is your high-level steps in the process. The second one, who's involved and what's their role, because that will have an impact on who's allowed to do what and permissions. The inputs and the outputs, that's generally documents. So CVs coming in, contracts going out, reports being produced. And the fourth thing you need to know is what systems are used. That's because that will be your starting point for integrating with other systems and perhaps avoiding duplication of entry. And in system, I include spreadsheets because spreadsheets are often used in a manual process to track things. And while they will not be needed in an AgilePoint digital process, you need to know what is being tracked, how, and at which point. And once you have this information, you're ready to understand what the scope is, to decide what the scope of your project is, and to prioritize and break down into different phases. Oh, we've got a poll now. Lucas, over to you.
All right, so that brings us to our final poll, and that is to get a better understanding of where you are in your automation journey. All right, starting to see some responses trickle in here. Sounds like some of you are still in the process of automating the various components of onboarding. And many of you have point-to-point automation put into place, right? But maybe not automating the entire end-to-end process. And a number of you simply haven't gotten started yet, right? Regardless, wherever you are in your automation journey, a lot of the guidance, both the prescriptive guidance here from Elizabeth as well as Christian, will help you get that first step taken, or take your current applications to that next level.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we have our scope, we have our process on paper, we're ready to start building. Where do we start? So the process you defined might be quite big. What we recommend is always start small and then scale fast. And what we mean by start small is your big process map. You might want to break it down into small deliverables. So for example, the process that Lucas showed us earlier, that is, as he said, from a real client. And their main problem when they mapped their whole onboarding process, their key area for improvement was being ready for day one. In fact, they never were ready for day one. And on average, the new starters had to wait 7 to 10 days before they had all their equipment and were all the access they needed ready to start working. So they broke it down and addressed just that piece. And in our process, you prototype, quick wins, test with users, go live, monitor, and then improve. As I said, start small and scale fast. And why is AgilePoint ideal to do that? Because AgilePoint is a low-code platform, which means it's quick to develop prototypes. There's no code compilation. You just click publish button, and your new version is out. There's no need to upgrade, install anything else. And because we have version control, it means that once you've clicked the publish button, your new process, your new app, is live. The old one is still there. So if you have 50 employees partway through the onboarding process, they can carry on in the old version, or you can migrate them to the new version if you want to. And that's why we're able to recommend to start small and then scale up. And that's it for me. Over to you, Christian, with the key takeaways.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, we all discussed about the challenges and then about the opportunities that an automated process like using AgilePoint will help you. You saw also the demo and the approach that we are proposing. Here are the takeaways from us. First of all, okay, systems and so on, but important is to keep the focus on new hires. It's important to optimize the process, to automate the process, but keep in mind that new hires should be in the center of the onboarding process, not define the process itself, losing the idea about the new hire, the employee. I said that they should leave their first day at the office feeling excited about their new journey and engaged in their work from first day onwards. And this is why this goal can be achieved by providing systems that are modern, attractive, that will let you ensure that the employees are integrating fast and consistent within your organization, and that they will remain happy with the job and your company after the first day. So this is the first takeaway. The second one is, of course, you should be somehow in control of your onboarding process, and also you should look at the process to optimize whenever it is necessary. Here I said, I made a parallel with an analogy with Formula One Carlos Sainz. I don't know if you know that he uses the Smooth Operator song theme when he have good results. It's quite the same with the processes. I mean, in driving in Formula One or other competitions, you should, in control means that you are doing some small adjustments when needed. And this is how you can have a good speed in the corners and so on. Otherwise, they might end up in the wall, you know. So the same is with the processes. The same approach works. Some adjustments that the HR or other persons involved in the process should do from time to time. They should perceive by the new hire they should be so smooth that the new hire actually they will not perceive. If there are some hiccups, you should have some exceptions in the system, as Lucas showed. It might be something that is not ready at the first day. I have a sub process that I can use to finalize the tasks. But for the new hire, things like this should not be perceived. Things like this should work fine. This can be done, of course, within an automated system by having the real-time data. You look at the status where the process is on the process map, or you have you collect data from a lot of processes and you analyze. And this is how you, as an HR manager or a direct manager or some other persons involved in the process, can react, first of all, on the spot and adjust it, solve the issue if it is needed, and of course react as optimizing the process in the future. So this helps a lot to have all the data and control the process. Then you heard a little bit about starting small and scale fast. Small scope at the beginning, but with some very important pains tackled. It is a good start for implementing in a BPM system any process. And of course, it's the same with onboarding process. So it is important to identify the big pains, to identify a scope that tackles those big pains, and it is not so large that will take you, I don't know, more than half a year to implement this process, and implement a quite quick process that will have some big results there, some big pains that actually will be solved by implementing this solution. And this approach will open the organization. It will have a big impact and will open to to improve the process and to add later on some other capabilities in the system. But first of all, they should perceive the system that the system is helping them, and then they will accept it and they will come with ideas later on. And of course, do not forget about the project stages, starting from stakeholder analysis, then prototyping, then going live. And this stakeholder analysis should be done anytime you need it. I mean, not only at the beginning, because that analysis about the quality of the process should be performed from time to time, And whenever you see that there is a need of some changes, some improvements, you should go through the stakeholder analysis, even if it is shorter as duration. These are the main takeaways from today. I think Elizabeth will, yeah. Please.
Excellent, Christian. Could you navigate to the next slide, please, so we can do some Q&A?
Sure.
All right. Well, we have some great questions queued up here. So the first question that I'm seeing here is really related to the demo itself, right? Pete has a few questions here. Are there steps where you can add approvers or digital sign-offs to the various stages of the workflow? Yes, absolutely. So what you saw there were a series of approval or data entry steps. And absolutely, at any stage in that workflow, we could have easily invoked your favorite digital signature provider. Right? Very commonly, we work with Adobe Sign, DocuSign, and Certify. Right? But the fact of the matter is, if you have a tool that's already in place, feel free to bring that along as you're building out your processes in AgilePoint. So thanks for that question, Pete. Christian, I'm seeing a question I think that would be best suited for you here, and that is, how long does a typical onboarding process take to implement?
Yeah. So normally it should not take long. Of course, basically it can be implemented in 1-2 months up to 6 months, let's say. And those differences comes from the complexity of the process, from the complexity of course, from the dimension of the organization, and this will result in shorter or longer stakeholder analysis, and of course complexity of the process. Also, it is important, in your demo was tackled the first part of the onboarding process, which is very good to start with. As we all said, start small. This is the first part that you need to start with, the resources allocation for the new hire when he comes in the first day. And then you can continue with the induction part, meaning trainings, procedures, and so on. So this can be added at the beginning as you know, very small, I mean, some features, and then the system can evolve with a lot of trainings and other things, even sometimes integrated with an e-learning platform or becoming a sort of e-learning platform. So this is how actually the functionalities and the complexity define the duration. But 1.5-2 months is a good start. Okay, it can go up to 6 months, but
right,
it should not be more than that.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for that. All right. So Elizabeth, I'm seeing a question here that I think would be best suited for you. The question is, what is the learning curve with AgilePoint?
What is the learning curve with AgilePoint? Well, I think I'm a case in point. I'm what we call a citizen developer, which means I don't know how to code, but I can use AgilePoint. And I can say that within probably a few days, I was building my first app. Now, obviously, AgilePoint is a very comprehensive platform. And so if you're a developer, you would have learned a lot quicker than me and will be able to go a lot further. Does that answer the question, do you think, Lucas? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it does. You know, it depends on your skill set coming in, but regardless of the skill set that you do have, right, keep in mind that there's AgilePoint training content geared towards the different levels of technical know-how, right? From the brand new business user, business analyst, all the way through the developer, right? And a lot of that initial training content is available for free. So definitely take a look at that to help accelerate that time to value for new applications. Great. So let's see here. There's a question that's related to our partner offering in Germany, in EMEA. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, if you have insight into this, but we have a question around partner trainings in Germany?
Yes, definitely. We do have a partner manager in EMEA, and I will put you in touch. I have the name here of the person, so we can email you the details. And we do have training throughout EMEA and throughout the world, really. It doesn't matter where you are.
Perfect, perfect. Excellent, excellent. I'm seeing 2 remaining questions here. We'll keep the line open for a few more minutes. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to chime in. But I'm seeing Pete here is asking a couple of questions related to the demo itself, right? And the first question is, how does the new employee get to the onboarding gift selection? That's a great point. So to do that, AgilePoint has a capability that we refer to as anonymous forms, right? And what this basically will do is direct a task or an email notification or something of that nature to someone who is not yet in the organization. They have not yet authenticated from an AgilePoint perspective, right? So it's a great use case for the onboarding scenario that we mentioned, but also, very broadly applicable across many other areas of the business, right? Think about how you would bring partners, customers, suppliers into your business process, right? This anonymous form capability enables you to bring them closer to your processes without needing to maintain user accounts for all of those external users. So that's a great question, Pete. And then the second half of that was, is the data collected in the process auditable? Yes, absolutely. So very strong audit functionality within AgilePoint, as well as a very deep reporting capability, right? So that's sort of, who's done what, when, is very easily seen within AgilePoint, right? And really requires fairly minimal skills in order to build such a report, right? The AgilePoint report designer is exclusively drag and drop, gives you lots of options in terms of how you're presenting the data, right? And something that you can whip up in a matter of a few moments, right? So great question there, Pete. All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions for the moment. We'll keep the line open for another moment or two, just in case any other questions come in. But until then, I'd like to thank everyone, and also for my panelists, Christian and Elizabeth, for your great contributions today. Be on the lookout for future webinars coming from AgilePoint, right? A regular recurring introduction to AgilePoint helps you understand the different platform components, right? And how they all contribute to our vision, right? Is process excellence at large scale. And then we also have a few, topic specific webinars coming up in the new year. For one will be to talk around how AgilePoint works with RPA, right? RPA has been one of the hottest topics over the last couple of years, right? And really, a complementary solution, right, to an AgilePoint. So be on the lookout for those sorts of webinars coming in the near future here.
Lucas, there's a really good question that's come in regarding accessing other IT platforms.
Yes, absolutely. I see that. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, David, absolutely, right? One of the strengths of AgilePoint is the integration offering, right? So roughly there are 70 different integrations that we provide off the shelf as a standard offering, right? And this is going to cover things like the most popular databases, CRM systems, cloud content management, right? As well as artificial intelligence and RPA, right? So really an ability to very easily connect to all of the different data sources and platforms that you use to run your business. Absolutely. Great question, David. Okay, I think that's all for now, unless there are any questions here in the next moment or so. So thank you very much, everyone, for spending an hour with us today, and an extra special thanks for your engagement here with the questions. It always makes for a much more enjoyable session for everyone involved. And once again, thank you to Elizabeth and to Christian.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you.
All right, until next time, everyone, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, bye-bye.